Welcome, fellow Stardust. Are you ready for a scare? Thank you for joining me today as I share with you 10 of the best horror films directed by women from 2000 to 2022 to celebrate women in horror. My name is DeRay, aka Rainbow Fright, lover of all things dark, creepy, and weird. Let's keep this intro short and jump right into this list, starting with the year 2000 and working our way up to 2022. You ready? Buckle up.
Is that a gram? New card. What do you think?
American Psycho premiered at the Sundance Film Festival on January 21st, 2000, and was a huge hit at the box office, although some criticized the movie's depiction of violence. Mary Harron's film was an adaptation of Bret Easton Ellis's novel of the same name, and she co-wrote the screenplay with Guinevere Turner. Mary understood the satirical tones in Bret's novel and turned the seemingly blatant misogynistic aspects of the book into black comedy genius on screen. This film puts a magnifying glass on yuppie culture in 1980s New York and exposes them as vapid, mindless consumers who are ultimately unhappy and incapable of finding happiness. This includes our lead, Patrick Bateman, played by Christian Bale. Unfortunately for Bateman, his discontent with life, mixed with his mental illness, causes him to go on a killing spree, mostly targeting women. His victims also included colleagues who he was jealous of. The upbeat music and rich cinematography with bright colors helped to play up the comedy that is still subtle enough to be missed by first-time viewers. And for those wondering, Mary Harron in an interview said she wishes that she had done the ending differently, since people were interpreting it incorrectly. The murders were never to be assumed that they occurred in Bateman's head, but rather his confession is meaningless in the hamster wheel called the system. It's possible he and his lawyer didn't know who Alan really was, just as Bateman was confused for other people earlier in the film. Everyone blended together. Nobody mattered, but everybody was somebody. American Psycho is now streaming on Apple TV, YouTube, Google Play, Roku, Vudu, Amazon Prime, and Redbox. Next on the list is French body gore film In My Skin from 2002, written, directed, and starring Marina Devon. In My Skin also addresses mental illness. In fact, many of the movies on this list tackle the subject, which can easily be further stigmatized if handled carelessly. However, the films on this list succeed in telling a story about a protagonist and their personal struggles, rather than exploiting a community of people with the same mental illnesses. These character studies are giving us insight into what these individual characters would do, not what everybody in the same position would do. These stories may sometimes be told with humor, like in American Psycho, but it is always done with respect. And besides, tragedy and humor always go hand in hand. And my apologies for this footage of In My Skin being so low quality. This was the only film that I couldn't get a copy of because of how obscure it is. Shout out to my patron Terrence for helping me collect this footage. In My Skin follows Esther, who after an accident at a party where she injured herself on a sharp metal object, begins to mutilate herself. The fact that she didn't feel any pain when she injured herself fascinated her, and this jump-started her downward spiral towards self-destruction. In one particular scene, while having dinner with her boss and their clients, she loses control of her left arm and begins to stab and rip at her skin without anyone noticing. As the audience, it's easy to think, why isn't anyone noticing? Especially when she receives seemingly knowing glares from across the table. The tension rises while the volume of the music also steadily rises, until finally Esther excuses herself. Esther had everything going for her, and seemed to be living a healthy life before her accident. What could have triggered her newfound desire? Was it the pressures and constructs of life? Did she in fact want to be with Vincent? Or was he just convenient to have in order to get a better home, a better life? This at times is a hard watch, as well as a hard listen, because Marina is relentless. The special effects and sound design were beautifully done. In My Skin is on YouTube and fwmovies.com. These links will be available down in the description. Let's fast forward to 2014 with the release of Spectre Vision's vampire western, A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night, written and directed by Anna Lily Amirpour, starring Sheila Vand. This Iranian horror romance premiered at Sundance and received rave reviews from both critics and audiences. With obvious inspiration from Nosferatu, the film immerses its viewers into a dark, moody underworld that is haunted by a lone vampire. It's seductively shot with soft, milky lights that at times create looming shadows. Sheila's character, simply referred to as the Girl, roams the streets of Bad City with a thirst for bad men. Dialogue is kept to a minimum, which is accompanied by fun and dynamic music that is most times unexpected yet fitting. A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night is a wonderful addition to the vampire genre and brings a little something different to the underworld of bloodsuckers. Even though we witness the gruesome murders of the people of Bad City, there is also a sense of innocence when we watch the love blossom between the girl and Arash. A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night is now streaming on Pluto, Tubi, Plex, Vudu, YouTube, Apple TV, Amazon, and Google Play.
We're just going to go around the table, okay? Can your comment wait?
I just want to say that the picnic is going to be a good place to reach out and form relationships with other people.
Black comedy horror The Voices also premiered at the Sundance Film Festival in 2014, and the following year received a limited theatrical release and VOD release. Produced by Vertigo Entertainment and Mandalay Pictures, it's directed by Marjan Satrapi and stars Ryan Reynolds, who is surrounded by a cast of amazing women, including Anna Kendrick, Gemma Arterton, Ella Smith, and Jackie Weaver. Ryan also does the voices of his pets, Mr. Whiskers and Bosco. This film's script was a selection from The Blacklist, which is an annual survey of the most liked screenplays that were unproduced that year. Like his mother, Ryan's character, Jerry, suffers from delusions and hears voices. He's been court-ordered to see a psychotherapist and take medication, but he finds that to be difficult to do. When he's off his medication, the world is a bright and happy place. When he takes his pills, reality sets in, and the world becomes an ugly place. Ryan's performance in this film is still one of his best to date. His ability to be sympathetic, while at the same time coming off as frighteningly unhinged, was quite a challenge that he pulled off with ease. The quirkiness keeps the movie lighthearted throughout the film, while still having a dark undertone of mental instability and death. The Voices is streaming on Apple TV, Amazon, YouTube, Vudu, Redbox, and Google Play. Also from 2014 is The Babadook, written and directed by Jennifer Kent, starring the talented Essie Davis as Amelia and Noah Wiseman as Samuel, her son. This IFC midnight film takes place in Australia, and throughout the film, everything looks and feels dreary. Amelia is a single mother and nurse who lost her husband in a car crash on the way to the hospital to give birth to Samuel. Even after 6 years, she still hasn't gotten over the grief of losing her husband. On top of that, her son's paranoia over the Babadook after reading a book makes her spiral even further. The melancholy tone throughout the movie is created with muted colors and dark shadows. The Babadook book is bright red, symbolizing danger is ahead. This tone brings about a constant tension that keeps the audience guessing and wondering what is going to happen next, like a proper psychological horror movie should. although at times there are hints of inspiration from supernatural horror The Exorcist. Even though we have a boogeyman featured in the movie, this is another one that tackles mental illness. The Babadook can be interpreted as a metaphor for Amelia's state of mind, which is out of control and decaying before our very eyes. Samuel might be hard to tolerate at first, but he nails his role as a troubled and annoying kid.
I want you to go away. I'm not going anywhere.
The Babadook is now streaming on YouTube, Tubi, Pluto, Roku, Vudu, Apple TV, Amazon, and Google Play.
You can just start spurting milk from your boobs, like two rockets. It's like boom, boom, pow. It's quite magical.
Why are you telling me that?
Well, just so that you know you have absolutely no control over your mind or your body anymore. This one does.
The sixth film on the list is 2016's British comedy slasher, Prevenge, that also stars the writer and director, Alice Lowe. Her character, Ruth, who was recently widowed, is 7 months pregnant and hasn't come to terms with her husband's death. Because of this, she decides to go on a killing spree, which begins in the first 5 minutes of the film. Her reasoning is revealed in the second act. The film was shot in 11 days because Alice Lowe was actually 7 months pregnant in real life, so she was trying to be cognizant of continuity and her level of exhaustion shooting for longer than 2 weeks. When given the opportunity to make this movie, she wrote the script in a month and shot the film just days after. And what she produced was a movie that gives us a lot of laughs, but some really great kills too. Ruth's journey and struggle isn't going to be one that the audience relates to, but Ruth is still a sympathetic character. Her loss is tragic, and it's clear that this event has caused her to start hearing the voice of her unborn baby, which aids her in her mission. Alice's performance is so raw. Every second of her on screen is magic. Prevenge is on Shudder, Amazon, Apple TV, Google, Vudu, and YouTube TV. Next up is Pollyanna McIntosh's horror drama, Darlin, from 2019. This standalone film is the third installment of a trilogy whose films include Offspring and The Woman, both of which are adaptations of Jack Ketchum's novels. The Woman, which I've reviewed on this channel, was written and directed by Lucky McKee and starred Pollyanna. Almost 10 years later, Pollyanna jumped at the opportunity to create a script that would be a direct sequel to The Woman, with a focus on social issues in America such as corruption, sexual abuse, homelessness, and the healthcare system. Pollyanna plays the woman again in Darlin, but most of our focus is on Darlin, who was the youngest daughter in the previous film. Even though serious topics are being explored, Pollyanna made sure to sprinkle in some humor, which keeps things light and fun. She brought a similar dark comedic tone that was present in The Woman, but cranked it up a notch. Watching Darlin acclimate to a civilized world again was almost more horrific than the kills we see on screen.
Today, we'll be studying evolution, the evolution of sin. For our new girl, we will start at the beginning, at original sin. Open your Bibles to Genesis chapter 2, verse 4.
Darlin is now streaming on Shudder, Tubi, YouTube, Amazon, Peacock, Apple TV, Google Play, and the Roku channel. Moving on to decade number 3, in 2020, Bulbul was released. This Bollywood masterpiece is lush and rich. The lighting, colorization, and cinematography make this film look like a beautiful painting, especially in the moments when slow motion was utilized, which usually occurred when something tragic was happening on screen. At the start of the film, we see a 5-year-old Bulbul get married to Lord Indranil, who is at least in his 30s. We then fast forward 20 years later, and Indranil has abandoned her and his village. His younger brother, Satya, finally returns home after being gone for 5 years and learns of the news. Bulbul and Satya are closer in age and grew up together. Naturally, Bulbul felt a connection with Satya. Upon his return, he also learns of multiple deaths in the village and begins to investigate. Many believe the demon woman is responsible for the murders, but Satya insists that it's only a folktale meant to scare children, as it did when he and Bulbul were young. Bulbul is played by Tripti Dimri, who really shines bright in this film. Her regal presence, timing, and slight facial movements put her in a top tier of actors. The way that this story unfolds is done so masterfully. Bulbul's choices are explained through various flashbacks that flow seamlessly with the narrative. This story of oppression and misogyny celebrates the brilliance of a woman's strength, despite the patriarchy she's forced to participate in. The use of red in the film symbolized not only our hero's bravery and strength, but also the dangers that lurked in the shadows for some of our characters. This motif really brought the entire movie together and became a visual cue, letting us know that we were about to get a moment of bravery, a tragic one, or both. Bulbul is now streaming on Netflix. The next movie is Titan, from French director Julia Ducournau, released in 2021. Julia has written and directed 2 other films, one of which is Raw, which could have easily been on this list as well. Titan stars Vincent Lindon, who plays Vincent, and Agatha Roussel, who plays Alexia. There couldn't have been a better pairing. Alexia, who is a car fetishist, becomes impregnated after making love to the car she danced with earlier that evening at a car show. After her murders finally start to catch up to her, she poses as a young boy who went missing a decade prior, Vincent's son. This movie starts out as one thing, but ends up being something very different. Alexia is cold-hearted and ruthless, but the love she ends up exhibiting for a complete stranger is moving. With hints of Tetsuo and Terrifier, Titan still manages to make you crack a smile from time to time. This sci-fi body horror will definitely turn some people off because of the tonal and pacing change going into the second act. The blood spills slow down, and the body gore gets cranked up all the way, especially by the end of the film. Titan is now streaming on Hulu, Amazon, Vudu, Apple TV, YouTube, Google Play, and Redbox. The last film on the list is Finnish creature feature Hatching, which is Hanna Borgholm's first feature film. With Cronenberg influences, this film brings something new and fresh to the table. In this story, we have a young girl, Tinja, who finds an egg in the woods in her backyard because she has an overbearing mother who pushes her in gymnastics for her own personal gain. Tinja finds comfort in caring for this egg. Though grounded in reality, it's important for one to suspend their disbelief when watching this one and enjoy the spectacle that it is. The creature in this film is just lovely. When it hatched from the egg, it was perfectly disgusting and creepy looking, but it was hard to tell what it was exactly. This was number 2 on my list of top 10 horror movies of 2022. Hanna used both practical effects and CGI, but CGI was used only to enhance the features of this monstrous creature as it would grow and transform throughout the movie. The story explores themes of social mobility and greed. It's also a coming-of-age story for our lead, Tinja. Her mother's desires have created an environment that is sterile and cold, even though it might look beautiful and inviting to someone on the outside looking in. And it does look beautiful. This entire movie is just gorgeous. Hatching is streaming on Vudu, Hulu, Amazon Prime, and Apple TV. What movies on this list have you seen? Did you enjoy them? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear what you liked and didn't like. Well, thank you again for joining me today, fellow Stardust. I appreciate you being here with me. I'll be back soon with a patron request movie review of Death Proof. So, if you haven't already, go ahead and hop on the Rainbow Fright freight train. and hit that subscribe button along with the notification bell. That way you'll get notified every time I upload a new video. I hope I see you next time. Peace.